Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving into a really fascinating explainer of the source material. We are going to unpack the incredible and honestly pretty massive complexities of India's evolving neighborhood-first policy. We're looking at a nation that's trying to navigate rising geopolitical friction in a neighborhood that is getting incredibly crowded and highly competitive. The political landscape of South Asia and the Indian Ocean is just shifting so fast right now, and getting a handle on these dynamics is absolutely crucial if we want to understand global geopolitics today. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the maritime backyard, then move into the Maldives tug-of-war, discuss SAARC as a jammed vehicle, explore the pivot to BIMSTEC, and finally look at securing the neighborhood. Section 1. The maritime backyard, India's island neighbor. Section 2. The Maldives tug-of-war, pendulum swings.
Now when most of us think of the Maldives, we immediately picture this beautiful, tranquil tourist destination, right? But geopolitically, it is so much more than that. This archipelago of about 1,200 coral islands sits right smack in the middle of the Indian Ocean, right next to these critical shipping lanes that guarantee uninterrupted energy supplies to major global powers like China, Japan, and India itself. Because of that prime location, the Maldives has basically become a micro case study for modern superpower competition. We are literally watching a real-time strategic chessboard where global powers are vying for influence, and it brilliantly illustrates just how fast things can flip. Just look at the last decade. From 2013 to 2018, under President Yamin, the Maldives took a very distinct pro-China tilt. But then, the pendulum swung completely the other way. From 2018 to 2023 under President Soli, we saw a massive India-first policy. Fast forward to today, from 2023 to the present under President Muizu, and we're seeing the rise of a really strong India out campaign. It's just this constant dramatic recalibration of foreign policy based on whoever is sitting in the president's chair.
What's really fascinating here is how distinctly different these two competing visions actually are. The India First policy from the Solid administration brought with it a huge wave of economic aid and infrastructure development from New Delhi. The biggest piece of that was the Greater Mail Connectivity Project, which was backed by a $100 million grant and a $400 million line of credit from India. A real game changer. Conversely, the current India Out campaign, which fueled the election of President Muizu, explicitly focuses on getting Indian military personnel off Maldivian soil, and it signals a hard pivot back toward Chinese alignment, so you have two radically different paths for the island's future.
To fully grasp what's happening, we have to look at the specific levers Beijing is pulling. China's growing footprint in the Maldives isn't random, it's highly structured. Back in 2014, the Maldives agreed to partner in China's maritime Silk Route, which was a move India had explicitly boycotted. Then came the construction of the massive China-Maldives Friendship Bridge. And on top of that, in 2017, the two nations signed a free trade agreement, which basically opened the Maldives up to Chinese goods and tourists in totally unprecedented numbers. These are the classic textbook building blocks of China's string-of-pearls strategy playing out right in the Indian Ocean.
But of course, this kind of economic embrace comes with some very real, very heavy financial realities. $1 billion. To put that into perspective, out of a total national debt of $5.6 billion, the Maldives owes over $1 billion directly to Beijing. That is a staggering figure, and it makes the whole theoretical fear of a debt trap incredibly tangible. When a small island nation takes on that kind of financial obligation, it inevitably and severely impacts their ability to maneuver diplomatically.
All right, Section 3, SAARC, a jammed vehicle, or the continental gridlock.
So, let's transition our focus away from the ocean for a second and look at the mainland. SAARC, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It was designed to bring peace, prosperity, and integration to South Asia, but it hasn't really worked out that way. We have to ask, why is SAARC failing? Just to give you an idea of how stalled it is, the organization hasn't even managed to hold a successful summit since 2014 in Kathmandu. Every attempt to meet since then has been scrapped because of regional tensions. So what exactly is breaking down the machinery here? Well, the roadblocks are incredibly deep-rooted. First and foremost, you have the deep, persistent hostilities between India and Pakistan. Those tensions constantly spill over and just hijack the organization's agenda. But it's not just about those two. There's massive structural asymmetry among all the member nations, vastly different economies, different political systems, which makes true integration incredibly difficult. Add to that the fact that SAARC operates on a strict rule of consensus. That means if even one single member objects to something, the whole thing grinds to a halt. Combine all of that with a broader regional identity crisis among the member states, and you basically have a perfect recipe for total paralysis.
And the real so what of this gridlock boils down to this incredibly dismal statistic. Intra-regional trade within South Asia is sitting at a mere 5%. 5%! That means 95% of the trade done by South Asian countries is with nations completely outside of their own region. When you look at somewhere like the ASEAN region, where intra-regional trade is hovering around 25%, it just highlights the total lack of economic integration happening in South Asia right now.
Section 4. The pivot to BIMSTEC, the Eastern Escape Route. Because SAARC is essentially stuck in traffic, India has had to get creative. They've demonstrated some remarkable foreign policy agility by actively seeking a detour around that roadblock to keep regional cooperation alive, and that geopolitical workaround is BIMSTEC. It stands for the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multisectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. It was formed back in 1997, and it brings together 5 countries from South Asia, that's Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, along with 2 from Southeast Asia, Myanmar and Thailand. The absolute key here? It connects these 2 vibrant regions while completely bypassing Pakistan, effectively avoiding the primary deadlock that paralyzed SAARC.
The logic behind this strategic pivot is actually super elegant. It acts as the perfect meeting point, where India's neighborhood-first policy smoothly merges right into its Act East policy. It takes 2 of India's biggest foreign policy doctrines and marries them into one cohesive, actionable strategy, all centered around the Bay of Bengal.
And instead of everyone trying to do everything all at once and stepping on each other's toes, BIMSTEC uses a really practical division of labor. Bangladesh leads the charge on trade and investment. Bhutan takes point on environment and climate change. And India, quite appropriately given its size and resources, leads the security pillar, handling things like counterterrorism, disaster management, and energy. It's a highly structured, logical approach to cooperation.
And here's the kicker. Unlike SAARC, BIMSTEC is actually building things right now. At the 2022 Columbus Summit, they hit some massive milestones. They signed an official BIMSTEC charter, which finally gives the organization a true international personality, an emblem, a flag, the whole shebang. They declared a master plan for transport connectivity, and to make sure the Secretariat actually has the teeth and resources it needs to function, India injected a $1 million operational budget. They are actively building the institutional machinery needed for real regional integration.
There's this quote from India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, that just perfectly captures this shift. He said, "There is energy, mindset, possibility in BIMSTEC, which fits with India's optimistic vision for economic cooperation." You can really hear that metaphorical contrast, right? The energy and possibility of BIMSTEC standing in stark contrast to the completely jammed vehicle of SAARC.
Which brings us to Section 5, Securing the Neighborhood, the Way Forward.
So what's the long-term play here for India? How does New Delhi maintain stability in an environment that is this fluid and fiercely competitive? Well, based on our explainer of the source material today, a few really specific steps emerge. First, India needs to strengthen the Colombo Security Conclave to produce tangible, real-world outcomes in maritime security. Second, on the diplomatic front, they could reimagine the regional architecture by inviting the Maldives into BIMSTEC as an observer at the very next summit. And third, at a fundamental level, India absolutely must continue to build mutual trust and invest heavily in sustainable infrastructure links across the region. That's how you maintain leadership and counter the growing presence of rival powers.
So, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. In a neighborhood that is defined by these massive pendulum swings in political alignment and billions of dollars in superpower investments, will new infrastructure and trust-building efforts actually be enough to permanently secure India's regional borders and interests? The geopolitical chessboard is constantly shifting, and exactly how India navigates this is going to shape the entire future of Asia. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.